So hello YouTube, I'm Wayne Bogan. Today I want to talk about the question of, is 56 too old to go into a career as a pilot, potentially into the airlines, corporate pilot, private pilot, or just flying in general? Obviously, by the fact that I'm doing the video, the answer is no, it's not too old. The answer is yes. I'm taking the plunge, and I want to talk about what I'm doing, why I'm doing, and how I'm doing it, and this through a series of videos that you'll be able to take a look at and understand. So as I look at going through this, the question is, what is too old for flying? As long as you can go through their basic requirements for flying, you can go in and get your private pilot's license, and I'll talk over time in the different types of licenses, how you can get your education, how you can get your certificates. It's not really a license, it's a certificate. And then what you can do if you're toward the end of your career like I am and want to move in. So why would I want to take a look at the age of 56, going into being a pilot? As you look at this, honestly, I'd gotten to the point where I could go ahead and retire. So I've done well for myself over the years, not super rich by any means, but done well enough that at 56, I and my wife could retire from our jobs and then go and enjoy life and feel comfortable doing it. Now, I'm not going to go to Europe every summer. I'm not going to do anything extravagant, but it'll give us the opportunity just to enjoy life. But historically, I've changed careers in the past, and I didn't want to just stop and do nothing. I wanted to actually go and have some fun. So as I've looked at that, I'd reached a point in my career where I'd had enough of the corporate life. Sitting in an office, or post-COVID, sitting at home behind four walls and a computer screen, sitting there for 8, 10, 12, sometimes 14 plus hours a day, working on spreadsheets and PowerPoints and presentations and prepping for getting the team ready, going through all the different pieces. I love my team, love working with the folks that I worked in and with for the different companies I've worked with, but was just tired of the rat race and wanted to actually go in and do something fun. Tired of constantly checking my email and picking up the phone at 10, 11 o'clock at night. What is the next emergency that's going to come back in? Why not, at this point in my life, when I have a good 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years of time left, that I could do something for fun, earn some money, not dipping much into my retirement savings, which I'll get into over time about how I'm doing this to finance what I'm doing for flight school, but making sure that I could just enjoy life. Go back, brief history. So finished college with a degree in biochemistry from Clemson University, leveraged the Army to pay for college, spent 10 years in the Army National Guard, got out. It was one of those 10 years, get in or get out and stay with it. Decided to get out as I was really getting busy with family, with a corporate job, moving up as I've gone through. Worked with the Army Corps of Engineers as a project manager on the hazardous waste cleanup, environmental compliance, even cleaning up bombs at World War II sites over time. Enjoyed doing that, but then I met my wife and did career change number one, shifting from biochemistry, biology, environmental sciences into technology. Took a 40% pay cut and dropped down from not even making a lot in the government to starting with a small company, coming in and worked my way up over the next 25 years in technology. Started with small companies, started working on certifications, got my first certifications in Microsoft, did the MCSE, the Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. Was at the time, there have been millions of people have gotten it, but I was in the first 90,000 to get their MCSE around the world. Worked that up into an ISP, where I then went on to get my Cisco certifications, CCNA, CCNP, and then worked my way up over time, over a 10-year period, from an engineering manager up to the chief technology officer at a regional telephone company, or CLAB. Got a call from a financial firm asking me to come in and help them migrate from old phone systems over to voice over IP. It was closer to home. Instead of an hour drive, it was a 15, 20-minute drive. Pay was better, opportunities were better, and I said, sure, let's make the change. So then I spent the next 13 years working for a financial company and working my way up to vice president, and it reached to the point where I could, over the next year, 2, 3 years, make senior vice president. Wasn't going to get up to the executive vice president or the most senior levels, but I'd done fairly well for myself. As I've gone through that, I enjoyed doing those, always worked hard, got different certifications, worked on Lean Six Sigma, and all the way through this I enjoyed working with the people, but I didn't always enjoy the job. Luckily, as the company grew, I got to be part of some really cool projects working for the financial company. But then one day last year, about a year ago, I told my wife, I said, let's go see either the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds. We've never seen them before, love to see them. Went to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, got to see the Thunderbirds, and on the way back called my cousin and said, can you meet me for lunch? We're going to be driving through your area. So he did. He said, yeah, this is barbecue restaurant. Went to the restaurant, parked. While we were sitting there, there was and didn't know until I get there, a small landing strip, nothing else, that was there beside the barbecue place, and watched somebody come in with a plane, pull up to the barbecue restaurant, get out, the gentleman and his wife get out, go in, have barbecue, and leave. And they go in and enjoy a great lunch. And looked at my wife and said, wow, I wish I could do that. Being at this age, Top Gun came out when I graduated high school. And so at the time, I didn't have 20/20 vision, never thought that I could fly. But seeing this gentleman come in with his plane and take back off, it got me thinking again and looking at it and said, that started my research. As I looked at that, I didn't think that I would be able to do more than just learn to fly. And then realized, going from pre-COVID to COVID, through the baby boomer resignation, retirement capabilities coming through of all the folks that could retire, said, lots of people were leaving the airlines and this is a great time to hire. And you look at interviews I've seen of one of the directors of hiring at United come in talking about pre-COVID, they only hired 700 pilots a year. Post-COVID, coming back in, I think it was in 2021, maybe 2022, they hired 2,500 pilots, 700 to 2,500. The next year they dropped to 2,300. And for 2023, they were only going to hire about 2,100. So the numbers are coming down as they were catching back up and filling positions. But as the airlines like United, Delta, Southwest, American were pulling people in to backfill those that left during COVID, backfill retirements for the boomers retiring, that then opens up a void in those that are teaching how to fly, those that are in private or corporate world or doing other different types of jobs. So it's leaving a vacuum as they've sucked more and more people into those co-pilot and pilot roles into the legacy carriers like the Deltas, Uniteds, and Americans. So it made for a unique opportunity, not just for anybody, but also even for somebody at my age to come in and to jump in to see if I could come back and jump into either the airlines or do something like be a pilot for a corporate jet or a private pilot. So looked at that, evaluated the cost, and realized that there is a good ROI, even though it's very expensive. It's going to take a lot of time, and there's an opportunity to come back in. So looked at Airline Central, checked out the salaries for the different areas, evaluated going to a regional such as Piedmont Airlines, which I could go to in Charlotte once I get all the appropriate credentials. Looked at what it would take to be a flight instructor, whether I would do a survey pilot, cargo, airlines, regional airlines, legacy airlines, etc. And realized that I could very quickly, after getting all of my certificates, going through and building hours up to, if you go to the major airlines, 1,500 hours. That came down some during COVID, coming back up now that things are easing off on the big wave, but the wave's not done yet. And said, yeah, I could come in. Even on the lower end, I could come back in with the corporate private pilots and anywhere bring in from 90,000 to, depending on the job, 200, 250,000 easy, and then watch other folks that have special deals that they've worked out that have been very much the entrepreneur, making even more money doing this. I said, you know what, let me look at this. Evaluate opportunity to train. Look at Part 61 schools. So that's more of the local school that you're going to get at a local airport. It's following the regulations, but it's not as strict as you go into a Part 141. And this is the Federal Aviation Regulations, or FAR, Part 61, Part 141, and some schools do a hybrid of some 141 and some 61. Started looking at the bigger schools. One of the more well-known is ATP. Said, hey, should I go to ATP? Should I look at their time, their training? But one of the challenges being at 56, if I did want to go to the airlines, is time. Knowing that at 56, if it was going to take 11, 12 months at ATP. Some do it faster, some do it longer. And then I had to get my 1,500 hours afterwards. Then it was going to take me 3 years, maybe 4 years to get to that point, and I didn't want to wait that long. Found some programs with Part 61 where some folks, if you've watched Fly with Trent on YouTube as well, Trent went through at a very cheap rate, was able to go through and finish all of his training for, let's say, around $50,000 in 3 months. Called around, started looking at schools, and most of the Part 61, the smaller schools at the local airports, I must have called 10 different ones, all kind of laughed when I said that I wanted to finish this in 3 months. They're like, oh, you just can't do that. Except for one school said, but we had one guy that finished school in 5.5 months, and that was super aggressive, and he did it through a company called Blue Line Aviation. Checked out Blue Line and said, where do I go from here? Blue Line has a program that is a hybrid, combination of 141 for the early certificates, private, instrument, commercial, and as you head up toward your certified instructor certificates, they're going to get into more of the Part 61 school. Evaluated those and looked to see how I would cover it, what the cost would be, and then could I make a career of this? Put the time together and said I realistically could come in, I could finish this at a cheaper price than ATP, but more than what somebody like Trent Dreisman had done with his Fly with Trent at the $50,000 in 3 months, and would get in a very structured program, would fit more of my lifestyle and where I wanted to go. So I did that, figured if I could get into a school, either ATP, 9-11 months, easy, Blue Line, 5.5 months, good success rate, Part 61, if I could get somebody through, then I could go down the path, and was really leaning more toward Part 61 until I kept reading story after story after story of pilots coming in and spending $100,000, $50,000 to $100,000, 6, 7, 8, 12 months just to get the first certificate for private pilot. And I realized it's going to take me a little bit more money, going to get me a little more time and effort to go through and get to a school like a Blue Line or ATP, but I would get a good success coming in and out. And so that's when I finally made the decision, yes, I could do that. I'll get to that back in a second. I looked at jobs, leaving once I got all the certificates, because I wanted to look at flight instructing, which would be one of the easy jobs to come back into. Assumed that I could make $20,000, $30,000 on the low end, up to maybe $50,000 as a flight instructor, hopefully near one of my local airports near my house, and said, let me look to see if I could do that, and if that doesn't work, then I'll go to be a ferry pilot. Or maybe I'll go and do survey and work for the Google Maps of the world, for the companies that do all the mapping for Google and other companies. As I went down that path, I said I could get to that, build the time frame, which to go to the airlines is roughly 1,500. There are different levels of what other areas or other companies are willing to hire for, and said if I could get into any of those, then I could potentially come in, build the 1,500 hours in, let's say, 18 months, maybe 24. If I'm really ambitious, I might be able to get it a little bit under 18 months, and use that as a supplement to help pay back some of the money I've spent for school, and then also make sure I'm not dipping into the retirement savings very much, as I use that as a buffer. Looked at would I go phase 2 from teaching up to going to the regionals, like a Piedmont Airlines in Charlotte, or would I go to charter for what is their federal regulation Part 135 school. So there's different companies, NetJet, PlaneSense, DaVinci, others that are around the area for me that I could go in, take a look at and say, this is what I want to do. And even debated, putting in medical flights. Would I go down that path? Because it'd great to go down and do this. And so as I looked at that, then phase 3 what would I be long term? Do I want to get into the legacy and go to the Americans, go to the United or one of the others? At the bottom line, I came back and said, I want to go to school as fast as I can, but I didn't want to do Part 61 because of the challenges I've seen so many people have. If I get the right instructor, the right person that could let me fly 2-3 times a day, depending on weather, it'd be great, but that's an iffy chance. Next up is going to the 141 or 61 combination schools. And at the end of the day, I decided I was going to go with Blue Line Aviation. Liked what they were doing, how they did it, new planes. They were flying the Diamond DA-40s, 42s, full instruments. It might be a little bit of a challenge teaching somebody in a Cessna after going through those, but it was the right time at 5.5 months. The other part, comparing to ATP was going to be 110 to 120,000 plus living expenses. And if it took 9 to 11 months, then that added another 20 to 30,000 of living expenses, because I wasn't going to be able to live in my house. That now I'm up to about $150,000, probably on average, maybe a little bit less or more for ATP. Whereas with Blue Line, I could come in, at the time they were about 98, and said, let me take that and spend about $6,000 or $7,000 for living expenses for the 6 months, instead of going closer to 12 months. Get through and start earlier to get me up at my age to a job, either going into past training and past flight instructing to something like the regionals, or maybe to the legacy or charter. So went ahead and pulled the decision to go to Blue Line, said I'm gonna come in and take this path, get done very quickly, and the intent now is to go back to my hometown and to independently work as a flight instructor, rent from the schools, the flight schools that's there, and the local airports, work with other owners and rent out their planes for anybody that wants and needs their plane to fly on an occasional basis, but is willing to let me cover that and go down that path, and are willing to come in. So now I'm going to Career 3.0. I've made the decision, said, yes, this is what I want to do. It's always been a dream to fly. I just thought that I never could do it. But now I've realized I really should have done it when I left the telephone company, the ISP, as the Chief Technology Officer, instead of going to the financial company and spending 13 years. I wish I had gotten into aviation 13 years ago. But hindsight's 2020. Now I've pulled the trigger. It is difficult and it is expensive. It's going to be, even with a school at 5.5 months, or like a Blue Line, it's going to take time, effort, study, hard work. But I was used to 12 hours a day at the corporate world, quite often doing 5 days at 12 to 14 hours, depending on what needed to get done. Always working, some on Saturdays and Sundays, sometimes all weekend. So what's different going to a school like Blue Line or ATP? So I was used to the hard work and said, yes, let's go in and do this. So I'd encourage you, as I start going through the videos, I start talking about how I pull the decisions in future videos, about the ROI, the training cost, the schedules, to come back in and look to see what it would take to get off the fence. Yes, it's expensive, but if you can leave your job, let's say you're in your 40s, if you can leave your job, take out the loan, and then turn around in 3 or 5 years, start bringing $200,000, $300,000 down for one of the airlines, your ROI very quickly comes back to where not only are you going to cover the cost of the loans, you're going to make more money than you potentially would as you do today, and your office is now the sky. It's not 4 walls with drywall, sitting in front of a computer doing your work for somebody else. Are there going to be challenges? Absolutely. But for once, I'm now in the driver's seat of where I want to go, what I want to do, how I want to do it, and making sure that I can deliver and get to the next step. So hope this helps as you go through and look at my journey, understand why I pulled the trigger to get out of the corporate world, to get out of the rat race, to then go and enjoy life for this next 10 to 15 years. Go fly and have a great time. Make sure that it's a liberating experience, and make sure that while I'm doing it, if I decide I don't want to do it, well, I can go into retirement. I can move down that path and just enjoy life. Or I can have even more fun flying the skies and enjoying it and helping other people enjoy it at the same time. If you have any questions, feel free to comment